I feel like I've already kind of coalesced on what some of the really interesting problems are going to be. And we can talk all about that later. But for now, I've been asked to give you some insight into what we're doing at Expedia. I know this is a tech talk, but I wanted to, or I kind of pitched this talk at the level of somebody who maybe has some authority in the company. Maybe you're interested in moving to the cloud, so maybe a lot of these details to my fiducial listener is not quite tech savvy yet, but I'm all about the tech stuff. So if you want to ask very specific questions, you want to drill down deep, feel free, we'll get to it. Right, so let's kind of set up the problem, the user story for someone coming into this conference or to a cloud-based system. You've been asked to bring your infrastructure from your company up into the cloud, and you've been promised all kinds of really great things, right? For example, let's get rid of the data silos, right? Let's give everyone access to the individual data sets. Let's democratize the machine learning that goes with it. And machine learning keeps coming up over and over again, right? So there's lots of strong motivation to get out there. So it's understandable for, and then, for reasons wanting to get yourself on the cloud. But maybe like me, you were kind of brought in kind of halfway, like the process has already started. So there's another possible use case for those of you out there where your data lake, that's something that has been promised, it's actually more of a data swamp. It's a mess, it's impenetrable, you have no idea what's going on, and you're here for help. So I'm not sure that what I have to say will help you. I sure hope it does. But I think in aggregate, maybe we can talk about and assemble some sort of strategies for dealing with this sort of thing. So one question is, well, what do you mean swamp? Like, let's get real, right? So what really happens nuts and bolts when you start putting everything in one big pot and say, OK, here's your data, now go and play, right? So you get a mess. It's just like a really messy warehouse. So what are some abstract things that we typically think about, at least as a tech company, an internet company? We log people's logins. We talk about whether or not they purchased something. What was impressed? What did they see on the website? Did they click on something? Did they hover over something? Now you can even assess to see how far they scrolled down the website. When did they spend their time? These kinds of data are pretty abstract, and they're pretty well understood means of like collecting them. But it's still a mess, right? Because the engineers that help you set up a website that has all this kind of stuff, right? So for Expedia, we're a travel company. And one of the unique things about Expedia is we have not only hotels, right, and planes, but also trains, and also boats, and also rental cars, and we can even sell you things to do. So there's a whole lots of different engineering teams that go into each and every single product or service. So before you get to the chance to click on something, let alone purchase it, some untold number of microservices have gone through. And each one of those microservices triggered a log. Each one of those logs isn't saved. And lo and behold, right, just as has been brought up earlier today, sometimes you go into those logs and you find interesting things. So we did this, for example, in the hotel sort logs. We'll dig into it, realize, wow, we can do some predictive analytics just based on what people did. So there's that. But then every line of business, I guess that's what I would just point out, every line of business has its own structure. And what I mean by that, I mean like intellectual structure, right? So for a hotel is a very specific item in a very specific place, right? But when you purchase a flight, you have one way, round trip, and then here's some industry lingo for if you want to take home something to impress your friends. Open jaw, OJ. OJ stands for if you say you start off at JFK and you go to LAX and you come back to LaGuardia. That would be an open jaw, right? It's not exactly closed. Or you can talk about multi-city sort of stuff, right? So these data structures are different, right? So it doesn't fit into this nice paradigm. So you have to deal with a slightly more complicated, abstract level of infrastructure, which adds to the mess, the complexity, if you like. And then finally, once you have all of this set up, you want to A/B test things. So the things that you're trying to model, the data that you're trying to model, the pipelines you're trying to set up are constantly in flux. Because maybe you're not just testing algorithms. Maybe you want to test, do I want smiley faces? Do I want frowny faces? Do I want blue smiley faces? All these kinds of things you want to find some new way to track. So this is a mess. Another way to phrase the problem is, so now they've given you all of this data, right? And can you please turn this junk, this huge storeroom of mess, into cash? And they give you some buzzwords like Spark, Hadoop, which we've been using a lot of, and so that's why we're here today, right? To talk about data platforms that we can do, do data science to make money. So this is by way of a preview of how I'm going to organize the talk. I'm going to give you a little bit of context, a little bit of disclaimer about things I have to say. And then I'm going to give you a lightning review of data platforms, partially because I assume that some of you are not on a data platform, partially because it tells my own story and help you give further context to where I come from and my perspective on things, and partially just to have 3 points. You got one of the jokes, awesome. All right, cool, so context, disclaimer, I'm an academic. I come from theoretical physics background. So I am not a machine learning PhD, I'm a PhD in physics. So, in that sense, the way I think about things is always in terms of, right, spherical cows. Like on the grand scheme of items from the ways of thinking about things, we have theoretical physicists on one end, and you have practicing economists on the other end, right? So I'm way over here. So everything I have to say is going to be modeled in that direction. So if something sounds really abstract, although I've noticed there's a lot of, like machine learning is a great abstract word that people have been throwing around today. So if something sounds abstract, it probably is, and we can dig into it and talk about it. Okay? And at Expedia, we still have a lot of work to do. We're still trying to completely move ourselves into the cloud. So this is not something that by any means we're done with. So definitely open to suggestions. So I am going to assume that you are going to take my opinion as one of an ensemble of opinions that you've collected over the date, or over this workshop today. So